What happens when a seemingly routine morning talk show interview collides with a superstar's breaking point? What happens when a joke pushed one step too far shatters the calm of daytime television and sends shockwaves across the internet? This is the moment the View spiraled into chaos. Before we dive into the explosive confrontation, make sure you subscribe to Stage View and like and comment to keep these dramatic stories coming. Now let's enter the room where it all went wrong. The studio lights burned bright, harsher than usual, as if they sensed something brewing beneath the surface. The audience murmured with excitement. After all, today's guest wasn't just any Hollywood name. This was Vin Diesel, a legend of action cinema, a man known for his controlled stoicism, a guarded presence that rarely cracked publicly. But today, something in his posture hinted at trouble. His shoulders tight, his eyes shadowed with a tiredness that didn't match the confident smile he forced as he walked onto the set. The applause thundered, but he only lifted a hand half-heartedly. Something was off, though few realized it yet. Whoopi Goldberg gave him a warm welcome, leaning forward at the table. Vin, she said with that signature smirk. You've been everywhere lately, press tours, premieres. Do you ever sleep? Vin let out a slow breath, chuckling, but the sound felt weighted. Not much these days, he replied. But it's all part of the job. Joy Behar, already eyeing him like a cat ready to pounce, chimed in before anyone else could. Well, maybe you'd sleep better if people weren't constantly complaining about you showing up late to sets, she said, tossing her note card onto the table as if she didn't need it. The audience reacted in a rolling wave of oohoo, followed by awkward laughter. Vin blinked. His jaw tightened, just barely. But he didn't reply. Something in the air shifted. Whoopi shot Joy a side eye. Joy, she warned gently, half laughing. We're 2 minutes in. But Joy shrugged unapologetically. Hey, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Isn't that the story now? Vin Diesel, action star, producer, family man, professional latecomer. She grinned, waiting for a reaction. Vin slowly leaned back, fingers interlacing in his lap. That's not exactly accurate, he said softly, but there was an edge in his tone. I show up when I need to show up. I show up for my team. Joy raised an eyebrow. Your team? Or do they show up waiting for you? A nervous laugh rippled through the audience, but it didn't last. Even the viewers in the studio felt they were witnessing something they weren't supposed to see. Sunny Hostin interjected quickly, trying to move things along. Let's talk about your new film. But Joy cut her off with a sweeping gesture. Oh, please, Sunny. We'll get to the movie. Vin can handle a little teasing. Right, Vin? Vin didn't answer. Instead, he gave that tight, closed-mouth smile celebrities use right before they explode or walk out. He looked at Joy with an expression that was half shock, half disbelief, like he couldn't understand why she was coming for him so hard so soon. Joy, Vin finally said quietly, you don't know what my days look like. You don't know what I'm dealing with behind the scenes. Joy leaned forward, elbows on the table. So tell us, because from the outside, it looks like you're just, what's the word? A handful. The audience gasped. Even Whoopi's smile evaporated. Joy, seriously, calm down, Whoopi said. Let the man breathe. But something had already cracked. The tension had crawled out of the shadows and planted itself on the table between them. Vin's voice turned deeper, rougher. I came here today to talk about something important. To talk about the work. Not to defend myself. Joy didn't flinch. If you want to clear the air, this is the place, isn't it? Not like this. Vin's voice carried weight. Not when it's coming at me sideways. For the first time, his frustration flashed openly. His eyes narrowed, and he shifted forward in his seat. The room felt colder. Sunny tried again to steer the moment back to safety. Vin, let's rewind for a second, she said gently. You said you're dealing with a lot behind the scenes. Do you mean professionally? Personally? We'd love to understand. But Joy wasn't done. Oh, come on, Sunny, she scoffed. We all know what he's dealing with. Egos. Drama on set. Co-stars complaining. Isn't that the real story, Vin? The studio audience was silent. The kind of silence that happens when people feel they're watching a disaster unfold live, but can't look away. Vin finally turned fully toward Joy. His voice dropped to a low, controlled growl. You don't know the first thing about my life, Joy. You don't know what I deal with, what I sacrifice. You think this career is easy? You think raising kids, making movies, protecting people you care about. Oh, please, Joy interrupted. Spare us the martyr monologue. That was it. Something snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but visibly. A shift in Vin's entire body, like a storm cloud had formed behind his sternum. He leaned in, hands gripping the table, and said slowly, deliberately, "You crossed a line." Joy laughed, but it was a shaky, defensive laugh. "Oh, relax. It's a joke. You're an action star. You can take a punch." "This isn't a punch," Vin said, eyes locked on her. "It's disrespect." Whoopi stepped in sharply. Okay, hold on. Let's all cool off." But the moment had already ignited. Vin's voice grew raw, honest, almost wounded. "You have no idea what this year has been like for me. No idea what I'm fighting through every day. And you decide to drag me on national television? For what? A laugh?" Joy folded her arms. "I'm doing my job." Vin's reply came instantly. "No, you're doing too much." A collective gasp rippled across the studio. Sunny covered her mouth. Sarah Haynes whispered, "Oh my God." And Joy, finally, looked unsettled. Vin's frustration wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive in the traditional sense. It was contained, trembling, emotional. And that made it feel even more powerful. He continued quietly. I almost canceled this appearance. I almost said no because I wasn't in the right headspace. But I still showed up. I still came here to talk to you all with respect." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Vin didn't let her. "And instead of asking me why I'm tired, why I'm worn down, you mock it. You twist it into something ugly." Joy's face tightened. "If you can't handle questions, maybe." "It's not the question," Vin said, voice rising just a notch. "It's the intention." Even the crew behind the cameras had gone still. Vin's eyes glistened, not with tears, but with fury restrained by the thinnest thread. "This isn't comedy," he said. "This is personal." Joy hesitated, just long enough for the audience to feel her discomfort. "I didn't mean it that way," she said finally. Vin leaned back slowly, exhaling as though he'd been holding his breath. "But you did," he said. "And that's the problem." The atmosphere thickened, ranking among the tensest moments ever aired on The View. Whoopi placed her hands on the table, looking between them. "All right," she said firmly. "We're going to take a breath. All of us." But before they could cut to commercial, Vin added one more line, soft but sharp enough to slice through the silence. "I came here for a conversation, not an ambush." The studio froze. Cameras kept rolling. And the confrontation was just beginning. The air in the studio felt electrically charged when the show returned from commercial break, like the moments before a storm when the sky holds its breath. Technicians whispered urgently behind the cameras. The hosts had rearranged themselves in their chairs, trying to appear composed, but a thin layer of tension clung to every movement. Vin Diesel sat with his hands clasped, elbows resting on his thighs, staring at the floor as though trying to anchor himself. You could see it in the tightness of his shoulders, the stillness of his breathing. He was holding something inside, something he wasn't sure he wanted to release in front of millions. But Joy Behar, though visibly rattled, refused to let the moment pass. As the applause died down, an applause that sounded forced, confused, she leaned forward, folding her arms on the table. "All right," she said with a strained smile. "Let's clear the air. Vin, I didn't mean to upset you." Vin lifted his eyes slowly, and the weight behind them made the room feel smaller. "I'm not upset," he said quietly. "I'm disappointed." A soft exhale slipped from the audience. People shifted in their seats, sensing they were witnessing something raw, something unscripted. Joy tried again, her voice slightly defensive. "Look, you know my style. I tease. I poke fun. It's part of the show. People expect us to ask the tough questions." Vin straightened, expression steady. "There's a difference between tough questions and disrespect." Joy's smile faltered. "I wasn't disrespecting." "You were," Vin said, not unkindly but firmly. "And you still are. Instead of just apologizing, you're trying to justify it." Sunny Hostin, sensing the danger of the moment spiraling again, gently touched Joy's arm. "Maybe we should just take a step back," she said soothingly. "We can reset." But Vin wasn't finished, and the audience could feel it. He inhaled deeply, gaze shifting between the hosts. He said, "I didn't come here to be Vin Diesel the movie star. I came here as a human being who's had a long, exhausting year. And I thought this would be a safe space to talk about that." Whoopi leaned in, her voice soft but commanding. "It is a safe space, Vin. We want it to be." Vin nodded slowly, appreciating her energy. "But it didn't feel safe," he said. "Not when I walked out here and got hit with accusations before I could even sit down." Joy opened her mouth, but Whoopi raised her hand, silencing her. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. This was a reckoning. Vin continued, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. I spend so much of my life trying to be strong for everyone around me. My family, my cast, my crew. And when you're carrying that much, when people are counting on you, sometimes you break. Sometimes you show up tired. Sometimes you show up late because you're trying to handle 10 things behind the scenes that nobody ever knows about. His voice tightened. But people don't want the truth. They want the narrative. Vin Diesel is difficult. Vin Diesel is late. Vin Diesel is hard to work with. And it's exhausting. That struck something in the audience. A few people actually murmured in sympathy. Joy tapped her fingers on the table. Her expression softened, just a little. Well, why don't you tell us what's really been going on then? She asked. If we got it wrong, correct the record. Vin hesitated. Not because he didn't want to, but because part of him didn't trust her enough to be vulnerable. Sunny jumped in quickly, recognizing his hesitation. Only if you feel comfortable, she said. We're not asking you to share something painful unless you want to. Vin exhaled, looking at the floor again. Then he spoke, voice low and almost fragile. You know, people think it's all glamorous. That I wake up every day surrounded by fame and money and lights and energy. But this past year, he paused, swallowing hard. This past year has been one of the hardest of my life. The audience went completely silent. Joy's brows lifted slightly, a hint of guilt flickering across her face. Vin continued, his voice growing tight, heavy with unspoken truth. I've had family issues. Real ones. The kind that shake you. The kind that keep you up at night. The kind that make you question everything. He blinked, gathering himself. And on top of that, I had to keep working. I had to show up on set. I had to produce. I had to keep the machine moving, even when I felt like I was falling apart. Joy looked down at the table, unable to meet his eyes. Whoopi nodded sympathetically. I get that, she said softly. We've all had those seasons. Vin continued. And every time I was late, every time I missed a call time, there was a reason. A personal, painful reason that I didn't want TMZ or random blogs dissecting. His voice shook with controlled emotion. But instead of asking what was going on, people judged. People pointed fingers. And hearing it from you, Joy, on national television, just hit different. Joy swallowed, then said quietly, I didn't know. Vin looked at her, and for the first time, his expression softened. That's the point, he said. You didn't know. And you didn't ask. The audience let out a soft chorus of sympathetic sounds. Even Joy seemed genuinely remorseful now, though she still hadn't apologized outright. Sunny leaned forward. Vin, thank you for being honest. That takes courage. There was another pause, uncomfortable but necessary. Joy finally straightened in her seat, eyes slightly glossy. Okay, she said. Look, I may joke around, but I don't ever want to hurt anyone. If what I said crossed a line, I'm sorry. The words felt reluctant, like they were being dragged out by the gravity of the room. But they were there. Vin nodded slowly. Not triumphantly. Not smugly. Just solemnly. I appreciate that. For a moment, it felt like the tension might ease. The audience breathed collectively, relieved. But the calm didn't last long. Because the next question, perhaps the most unexpected of the day, came from Sarah Haynes, who had been quiet, absorbing the escalating emotional intensity. Vin, she asked softly, when you talk about being overwhelmed, does that tie into what we've been hearing about friction between you and some of your co-stars? Joy's eyes widened. She wasn't the one pushing this now. Sarah was. Sunny shot Sarah a surprised glance, but the question was already out in the open. Vin's posture stiffened. He blinked, slow and calculating, and the audience stiffened with him, sensing a new storm brewing. I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus, Vin said. I never have been. But the rumors, Sarah pressed gently, they say. Rumors, Vin interrupted, voice harder now, are just that. Rumors. Sarah nodded, but she wasn't pulling away. I get that, but I feel like the reason people believe them is because you've been quieter than usual. People want clarity. Vin leaned back, crossing his arms. Clarity, he repeated. Or drama. Clarity, Sarah said again, more firmly now. But Vin wasn't convinced. Let me tell you something. When you care about people, truly care, you don't talk about your disagreements in public. You handle them privately. With respect. Joy raised her eyebrows. But when the disagreements spill into headlines, Vin looked at her sharply. Those headlines don't come from me. The audience murmured. Sunny whispered under her breath. Oh boy. Whoopi, sensing the friction returning, tried once again to de-escalate. Vin, we're not trying to corner you. We just want to understand your side. Vin's voice deepened. My side is simple. When you're in the spotlight, people feel entitled to your struggles, your pain, your mistakes. They want to dissect you like you're not a person. He shook his head. I'm tired of that. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table, locking eyes with the audience as if speaking directly to every viewer at home. You all think you know me, but you don't. Not really. You know the version of me people sell. The version the studios promote. The version the media spins. But the real me? The one who's been struggling, fighting, breaking in silence? That version never gets airtime. The intensity of his voice made the entire room lean in. Then, unexpectedly, Vin's expression shifted. Something inside him cracked, not with anger, but with vulnerability. You want to know why I came here today? He said quietly. I came here because I thought maybe this would be the place where I could speak honestly without being attacked. His eyes flicked to Joy, then back to Whoopi. But what happened instead? He exhaled, shaking his head. It just confirmed how misunderstood I really am. Sarah's expression softened with genuine empathy. Vin, people don't want to misunderstand you. They just don't know what's going on unless you tell them. Vin stared at her for a long moment. Then he said something no one expected. I don't know if I can tell them. The hosts exchanged looks. Sunny leaned in. Why not? Because, Vin said, voice cracking at the edges. Some things are too personal. Some things you carry alone, whether you want to or not. And there it was. The moment the wall around him finally lowered enough for everyone in the room to see the truth. Vin Diesel wasn't angry. He was hurting. Deeply. And the more he tried to hide it, the more it spilled out of him in raw, unfiltered emotion. The audience watched silently, mesmerized. Whoopi exhaled softly. Vin, we hear you. But Joy, clearly struggling with her own discomfort, added quietly. Then what do you want people to know? Vin locked eyes with her. His voice became a whisper. That I'm human. And once again, the studio fell silent. But the silence didn't last. Because when Vin finally lifted his head and looked Joy directly in the eyes, something inside him shifted. Something that promised the biggest confrontation was still coming. The tension on the set of The View had transformed into something almost physical. Something heavy enough that even the cameras seemed to struggle capturing it. The audience watched wide-eyed, shifting forward in their seats as though drawn by invisible threads. Vin Diesel's final words from Part 2, that I'm human, still echoed like a slow-rolling thunder. But the storm wasn't done. In fact, it was about to reach its breaking point. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, her voice lower, gentler. Vin, I think people do see you as human. They just see the tough parts too. The public persona sometimes gets in the way of the private person. Vin gave a faint nod. I get that. But lately, it feels like every move I make gets twisted. Sarah Haynes, who had been quietly observing the subtle shifts in Vin's body language, asked cautiously, when you say twisted, do you mean by the media? By fans? By people close to you? Vin hesitated. A long, painful hesitation. The kind that made the audience collectively hold their breath. I mean, all of it, he admitted. But mostly by people who don't know me, and by a few who do. A ripple of murmurs traveled through the crowd. Joy lifted her eyes slowly, watching him, understanding exactly what he meant even before he said it. This wasn't just about teasing. This was about betrayal. Sunny leaned in, curiosity sparking behind her eyes. Vin, are you saying someone close to you leaked things about you? Vin exhaled sharply. I'm saying trust is a rare commodity these days. Joy swallowed, and for the first time since the interview began, she looked genuinely unsettled. Are you talking about someone on your crew? She asked. A co-star? Vin didn't answer. That silence said more than words ever could. Sarah's jaw dropped slightly. The audience gasped. Whoopi's eyes widened. Sunny whispered under her breath. Oh wow! Joy blinked, stunned. So the stories about arguments on set, about tension, those didn't come from reporters guessing? Vin leaned back, jaw flexing, expression tightening. I'm not here to name names. But someone betrayed you, Joy said softly. Vin's eyes hardened. Yes. The word hit the table like a dropped weight. A few audience members covered their mouths. Someone in the second row whispered, Oh my God. Vin continued, voice deep, roughened by months of exhaustion. I've had people I worked with, people I trusted, twist things to make me look like the villain. To make themselves look better. To sell a narrative. Joy crossed her arms, not challengingly this time, but almost protectively. And you've been carrying that alone? Vin let out a humorless chuckle. Who else is supposed to carry it? The room sank into silence. Whoopi took a moment before speaking. That's a heavy burden, Vin. Vin nodded slowly. I know. Sarah leaned forward. Is that why you've been so guarded? Why you've been quieter in interviews? Vin nodded again. I've been trying to protect myself. My family. The people who actually care. Then he added, almost as an afterthought. And maybe I've been trying to protect those who don't deserve it. That line sent a chill through the studio. Joy pressed her lips together. That's big. Vin looked directly at her. Yeah. Joy blinked, feeling the weight of something she hadn't anticipated carrying. Then she said something rare, something the audience never expected. Vin, I know I made a joke earlier, but I promise you I wasn't trying to twist anything. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I'm sorry you felt cornered. But Vin's response wasn't relief. It was a slow, simmering frustration that had been boiling beneath the surface for too long. You know what it feels like, Joy? He asked, leaning in. It feels like every time I show a crack, someone tries to split it open wider. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't hurt. Joy's face dropped into genuine remorse. I didn't realize. No, Vin interrupted softly. People never do. Not until it's too late. Sarah inhaled sharply. The audience shifted, restless. Sunny chewed on her lower lip, caught between empathy and the desire to calm the situation. Then Whoopi spoke, calm, firm, grounding. Vin, people care about you. Your fans care about you. But you have to let people in for them to understand what's going on. Vin stared at the table, silent. A long, quiet beat passed. Then finally he looked up. And what he said next cracked the entire room wide open. I lost someone this year. Every host straightened in their seat. Someone in the front row gasped audibly. Vin's voice wavered for the first time since he'd stepped onto the stage. Someone I loved. Someone I depended on. And since that day, everything has felt heavier. His throat tightened. The audience murmured, compassion filling the space. Sunny placed her hand over her heart. Vin, I'm so sorry. Vin nodded faintly. Thank you. Joy's eyes softened. Why didn't you say so earlier? Vin looked at her with exhausted honesty. Because every time I show vulnerability, someone uses it against me. Joy shook her head. Not here. Not now. But Vin didn't seem convinced. He glanced out at the audience, hundreds of faces watching him, absorbing every flicker of emotion. I've been trying to keep moving, he said. Trying to be the strong one. Trying to carry everything. But I'm tired. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. The audience's collective inhale was immediate. Sarah whispered, Oh dear. Whoopi gave him a steady, grounding look. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to be human. Joy nodded slowly. It's okay to have a breaking point. Vin clenched his jaw. But when I reach that breaking point, people don't see a man. They see a headline. He shook his head. I didn't want today to be another bad headline. Joy swallowed. Nobody here wants that either. But Vin leaned forward, eyes darkening with something powerful. Hurt mixed with anger, exhaustion mixed with defiance. Really? He asked quietly. Because that's exactly what it felt like when I walked out here. Joy's shoulders sagged. Vin. No, he said, voice rising ever so slightly. Let's be honest. You wanted a reaction. You wanted a moment. And you got one. The audience murmured in agreement, some uncomfortable, some enthralled. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it again, struggling. Vin continued, voice trembling with restrained emotion. I didn't come here to be ambushed. I didn't come here to be mocked. I came here because I thought this show, this table, these women, would give me a fair shot. Sunny leaned in. We do want to give you that. Vin shook his head. But it didn't start that way. Joy finally spoke, voice fragile. You're right. Vin looked up, surprised by her honesty. I was wrong, Joy continued. I crossed the line earlier. I shouldn't have made that joke. And I shouldn't have defended it. I'm sorry. Truly. The audience murmured approvingly. Sunny nodded encouragingly. Whoopi relaxed slightly. Sarah exhaled in relief. But Vin looked conflicted. Because apology or not, something inside him had already cracked wide open. And once it cracked, everything inside began rushing to the surface. I'm carrying so much, he whispered. More than anyone knows. And I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending everything's fine. The audience became so quiet you could hear the hum of the studio lights. Joy reached out a hand across the table. Hesitant, cautious, like approaching a wounded animal. Vin, she said softly, you don't have to pretend right now. Vin looked at her hand. But he didn't take it. He wasn't ready. His voice deepened, trembling with emotional gravity. "You want the truth?" he asked. "The real truth?" All four hosts nodded. The audience waited. Vin inhaled sharply, steadied himself, then said, "I'm not just exhausted. I'm angry." The words hit like a sudden crack of thunder. Sarah blinked. Sunny froze. Whoopi leaned back slightly. Joy stared, wide-eyed. "Angry?" Joy asked quietly. Vin nodded. "Angry at the media. Angry at the rumors. Angry at the people who twisted my life. Angry at being judged for things people don't understand." He paused, then added, voice trembling, "And angry at myself for letting it get this bad." The emotional impact rippled through the entire studio. But the storm wasn't done building. Because as Vin exhaled, shoulders shaking, not in rage but in release, Joy shifted uncomfortably. And then, without thinking, without realizing how fragile the moment was, she said, "But Vin, isn't some of that anger on you? I mean, you have been tough to work with sometimes." Sarah's eyes widened. Whoopi's head snapped toward her. Sunny mouthed, "Oh no." And Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel slowly lifted his head. His eyes narrowed. His expression hardened into something fierce. Something sharp. Something final. And his voice, when it came out, was low, controlled, and absolutely furious. "Joy, you really don't know when to stop." The entire studio erupted into gasps. Joy's face fell. Sarah whispered, "Oh God." Whoopi muttered under her breath, "Here we go. Because this moment, this line." The gasp that swept across the studio was sharp enough to cut the air. Joy's eyes widened just a fraction, caught between shock, embarrassment, and something that looked dangerously close to fear. She finally understood that this wasn't just an uncomfortable interview. This was a breaking point. Vin Diesel leaned forward, his elbows on the table, voice low and steady. Too steady, the kind of steady that meant he wasn't holding back anymore. "Joy," he said again, slower this time, "you don't know when to stop." The words echoed, heavy, final. Joy's throat bobbed in a small swallow. "Vin, I wasn't trying to." But he raised a hand, gently but firmly enough to silence her. "No, you've said enough. You've been saying enough since the minute I walked out here." The audience murmured, some nodding, some uneasy. Even the camera shutters seemed to pause between clicks. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, her tone calm but edged with warning. "Vin, let's keep this respectful. I know it's tense, but..." Vin's eyes softened when they landed on Whoopi. "I am being respectful," he said quietly. "But I'm being honest too. And I think that's fair." Sunny nodded slowly, supporting the sentiment. "Sometimes honesty is uncomfortable, but we can still talk it through." But Vin wasn't done. He turned back toward Joy. "You don't realize the power of your words," he said. "You don't see the impact they have. You joke, you poke, you prod. And maybe you think it's harmless. But you hit people where they're weakest, and you don't know the damage you leave behind." Joy's eyes darted downward. Vin continued, his voice filled with a frustrated vulnerability rarely seen from him. "I've been carrying grief. Real grief. I've been fighting through days where getting out of bed felt impossible. I've been working when I should have been healing. And instead of compassion, I walk onto this stage and get mocked." Sarah Haynes covered her mouth, visibly shaken. Sunny touched her chest, emotional. The audience murmured in sympathy. A few even clapped supportively until they realized applause didn't fit the tone. Joy finally lifted her gaze. Her voice was softer now, defensive stripped away, leaving something raw behind. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, Vin. I swear. I don't know. I thought you were used to this. You're Vin Diesel. You're strong. Tough." Vin let out a sad breath. "That's the thing, Joy. People think I'm invincible. They think nothing affects me. But I'm human. I bleed. I break. I hurt." His voice wavered. "And lately, I've been hurting more than people know." The studio was so quiet it felt unreal, like the world was leaning in to listen. Then Vin added, "You don't have to tiptoe around me. You can joke. You can tease. But there's a line. And today, you went too far." Joy nodded, a tear glistening in the corner of her eye. "You're right." Vin blinked, surprised. "I crossed the line," Joy continued. "I shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have pushed. I'm sorry." The apology was genuine, trembling, humble. But the damage had already been done. Vin leaned back, exhaling deeply. "Thank you." Whoopi jumped in, guiding the moment back toward balance. "Vin, we appreciate you opening up. And Joy, we appreciate the accountability. Maybe this is a moment for all of us to understand each other better. But then Sunny asked the question everyone was thinking. Vin, what made today so different? You've handled criticism for years. What was it about this moment? Vin looked up at the ceiling for a moment, gathering himself. Then he said quietly, because today was the first day I almost didn't come. The audience gasped. Sarah's hand flew to her heart. What? Vin nodded. I was sitting in the car outside the studio. I almost told my team we were leaving. I just didn't have it in me. He swallowed. And then I thought, maybe if I show up, if I speak from the heart, someone out there will hear me. Someone going through the same thing. Someone pretending to be strong when they're falling apart. Joy whispered, "Oh my God." Vin blinked rapidly, emotion tightening his voice. But walking out here today and getting hit with a cheap shot? It felt like a sign. Like the universe was telling me I made the wrong choice. Whoopi slowly shook her head. No, Vin. You didn't. You being here, this conversation, it matters. Sunny nodded firmly. It does. Sarah added, more than you know. Joy softly said, and I'm sorry I made it harder. Vin exhaled, nodding once. Then he looked at the audience. Really looked at them. You know, people expect strength from me. Always. They expect the tough guy. The unbreakable guy. But nobody asks the tough guy how he's doing. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Vin's voice grew softer. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones breaking behind the scenes. Someone in the audience whispered, "That's real." Vin continued, "But I'm not here to complain. I'm here to say be kinder to people. You never know what someone's carrying. You never know what battle they're fighting." Joy wiped her eyes subtly, trying to maintain composure. Then Vin added, with a hint of fire returning to his tone, "And stop assuming celebrities have it easy. We're human beings before anything else." Whoopi nodded deeply. Amen to that. Sarah gave Vin a supportive glance. What do you want people to understand about you moving forward? Vin paused, then spoke with clarity. That I'm trying. Every day. Even when it doesn't look like it. Even when the rumors say otherwise. I'm trying. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. And that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I mess up. I fall short. But I show up. I show up even when it hurts. The audience applauded softly, supportively this time. Joy whispered, "Thank you for sharing that." Vin nodded. Then, just as things felt like they were settling, Sarah asked a question that shifted the energy again. So what happens now, Vin? After this conversation, after this moment, Vin thought for a long moment. Then he said something unexpectedly freeing. What happens now? He shrugged lightly. Nothing dramatic. No big declarations. I'm going to walk out of here, take a breath, and move forward. Because that's all any of us can do. He smiled faintly. But I hope the next time someone hears a rumor about me, they pause before believing it. And I hope the next time someone jokes at my expense, they remember there's a person behind the punchline. Joy nodded slowly. I will. Vin offered a small, almost forgiving smile. And the room exhaled. Whoopi gave the closing cue. Well, this has been one of the realest conversations we've had on this show. Vin, thank you for being here. Truly. Vin nodded, gratitude glowing faintly in his tired eyes. Thank you for having me. Sunny added warmly. You're welcome back anytime. Sarah smiled softly. We wish you healing. Joy whispered. We really do. Vin stood. The audience rose with him, some applauding, some cheering softly, some simply watching him with a new understanding. As he walked off stage, there was no swagger, no movie star showmanship. Just a man, strong, vulnerable, exhausted, healing. And what happened next? It unfolded faster than wildfire. Clips of the confrontation hit the internet within minutes. Social media exploded with hashtags, reactions, debates. Fans defended Vin passionately. Critics called it one of the most shocking live TV moments of the year. Think pieces emerged about celebrity mental health, public scrutiny, and emotional labor. And Joy Behar trended for 48 hours straight, some defending her, many calling for accountability. The View issued a follow-up statement the next day, acknowledging the intensity of the moment. But the most impactful reaction came from viewers around the world. People who related to Vin's vulnerability, who felt seen in his exhaustion, who understood the weight of pretending to be strong. And as the noise grew louder online, so did the question. Was Vin Diesel finally reaching his limit, or finally speaking his truth? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear. This episode would be remembered, talked about, analyzed, felt. for years. And now, as this cinematic story comes to a close, it's your turn. If you're watching this, tell us. Was Joy wrong? Was Vin justified? What would you have done in that moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you want more explosive, emotional, cinematic celebrity stories like this, subscribe to Stage View. Like this video. Share it with someone who loves drama and real emotion.